Hi, fifth grader. It's Mr. James back with day 2 of week 9. We are going to be reading the rest of the executive branch book. So we left off last on page 8, so we're going to be starting on page 9 through the end of the text today. After the text is over, you're going to be writing about the main idea of the different sections. So when we talk about sections, we talk about these headings and that information underneath those headings. And when we talk about main idea, we want a short, succinct, meaning to the point statement about what that section is really about. Maybe one sentence. And then you'll get an overall main idea of the entire book at the end. So make sure you are following along in your text, and we'll do the writing at the end.
What the President does. The President has many powers. For example, the President commands the American military. She or he can send the military anywhere in the world. The President also has the power to pardon criminals who are guilty of federal crimes. The executive branch is responsible for the United States' relationships with other countries. The President chooses ambassadors who represent the United States abroad. He or she also has the power to create trade agreements with other countries. The President can send armed forces to help other countries and sign treaties, agreements of peace between nations. However, the U.S. Senate must approve the terms of the treaties. The President chooses Supreme Court justices, cabinet members, and agency leaders. Many of these choices must be approved by the Senate. The President has an important role in making laws. Though the executive branch does not write laws, the President has the power to approve or deny the laws that Congress makes. When both houses of Congress pass a bill, it is then sent to the President. If the President signs the bill, it becomes law. The President can instead turn down a bill with a veto. In this case, the bill does not become law unless Congress overrides the veto. Congress can only do this if 2/3 of its members, in both houses, vote for the bill. Historic actions of the executive branch. While the executive branch does not make laws, the President can write executive actions. These are instructions from the President to the government. Some of these decisions change Americans' lives. During the Civil War, for example, President Abraham Lincoln ordered that slaves shall be forever free. And in 1935, President Franklin D. Roosevelt created the Works Progress Administration, WPA, which gave thousands of Americans jobs. WPA workers made roads, built schools, and planted trees. 4 terms for Franklin. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, the 32nd President of the United States, won the presidency 4 times. His presidency stretched from 1933 to 1945. He brought the country through both the Great Depression and most of the Second World War, though he died just before the war's end in 1945. After his death, Congress limited the presidency to 2 terms. Some executive orders have been harmful, however. One example happened after Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii in 1941. This attack brought the United States into the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. After the attack, President Roosevelt signed an order that let the U.S. government force Japanese American citizens from their homes and imprison them in camps. There, they were treated as enemies of the government. Checks and balances. Under the Constitution, each of the 3 branches of government, the executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch, serves as a check on the others. This prevents any one branch from getting too much power. The President's veto power, for example, is a check on the legislative branch. Normally, Congress needs a president's signature to pass a bill into law. To date, U.S. presidents have vetoed more than 2,500 bills. Congress checks the president through the power to override a veto. Congress also checks the president by approving or blocking the people chosen by the president to serve on the Supreme Court and the cabinet. Though the president is commander of the armed forces, only Congress can officially declare war. Congress also has the power to remove a president from office through a process called impeachment. Finally, the executive branch is a check on the judicial branch because the president chooses federal judges. The judicial branch checks both the executive and legislative branches by making sure that both Congress's laws and the president's orders are constitutional. The writers of the Constitution gave more power to the legislative branch than the executive branch. However, the power of the executive branch has grown over time. For example, one of Congress's checks on the executive, the power to declare war, has faded into the background. Congress last declared war in 1942. All military action since then, including the Vietnam War and the Iraq Wars, has been taken by the executive branch without action from Congress. Conclusion. So far, the Constitution has worked as its writers meant it to work, even though the powers of the executive branch tend to change over time. The executive branch has been able to carry out the nation's laws. At the same time, the legislative and judicial branches check the president's power. The government of the United States, therefore, is balanced between its executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The Constitution ties the three together. As for the presidency, it is likely to continue to change as the needs of the country change.
All right.
Connections.
Get back on the screen here. Okay, so as you get into your activity today, as I said before, I believe, let me get it pulled up here, there we go, is you are going to be completing a web, and that web deals with, I gotta get where I can scroll here, and that web deals with the main idea of each section of the text. So you'll name the different sections or chapters that are in the table of contents of the text and write the main idea of those, short sentence about what that section is about, and then the overall main idea of the book goes in the middle. Then you've got those vocab words, which are listed on the first page I'd like you to do. And the last thing that you're doing today for reading is a 6-question quiz at the end of this book. You'll see on the last question there, the extended response. I provide you with some lines right here. Those lines are for you to write that number 6 question on. So what are the 3 requirements of becoming president of the United States? And those are spelled out pretty clearly within the text. When you're done with that, you're going to be on to writing. And for writing today, you need to flip back to the outline that you did yesterday. And from that outline yesterday, you're going to compose your own informational essay about butterflies. Remember, it's about butterflies, not about yams. I know that it talks about yams. That's an example of what an informative essay looks like. You're writing about butterflies, and your butterfly information is in the separate stapled pages. Now, you should have completed a graphic organizer. So you're going to take that information from the graphic organizer, like the completed one I've given you an example of here, and you can see how they take the information from that. Like, for example, it says details here, right? And those details are in there. And you'll see that those details become the details of the paragraphs. So really, you're just changing the information that you collected into sentences and putting it into 5 paragraphs. And I think this is a great example of what your essay should look like, but yours is about butterflies, right? Okay, hopefully I've made that really clear. And then here's a couple pages for you to write that rough draft on. All right. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you, and so would your other teachers. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.